Welcome to the Software People Stories. I'm Shiv.
I'm Chitra,
And I'm Gayatri.
We bring you interesting, untold stories of people.
associated with the creation
Or consumption of software-based solutions.
You'll hear stories of what worked.
and sometimes what didn't,
You will also hear very personal experiences.
and insights that would trigger your thoughts.
And inspire you to do even greater things. In the second part of the episode with Vadeesh, first shares about his values and principles of why he started AlgoShack. And he talks about the successes in terms of every milestone, including ID issuance or the website launch or the first product that he launched. And Vadeesh also shares his tools and techniques on how he ensures that his employees also find it gratifying and not just the founders in the startup journey. It's very thrilling to hear his thoughts on how test engineers, quality engineers need to look at themselves, right from modularizing their code as well as looking at it holistically and looking at it from functional as well as non-functional perspective. Listen on.
Since you mentioned patience,
Yeah.
I wanted to segue into slightly, probably the next larger theme of AlgoShack.
Yeah.
Of being an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Generally, we find that entrepreneurs are impatient. Now, impatient in that they want to bring a change, they want to create an impact, they are not satisfied with things being the same.
Yeah.
So how
Yeah,
was
yeah.
that transition for you from being patient or having to be patient to probably what one may also call as the startup bug that bit you?
Yeah, I think I would say that one has to have patience, wants to pursue something like a startup, because there is no instant gratification. There is nothing that happens overnight. I mean, I'll give some very simple examples, simplest of examples, maybe very tactical.
Mhm.
If you have not completed 3 years, and if you don't have financials for 3 years, no bank would accept your application for loan.
Oh.
I mean, it is as simple as that.
Yeah.
So you can only create some history, and that is very much required for building credibility.
Hmm.
Then you need to have that patience. I mean, let me back up a bit. We wanted to do something different. We wanted to create some more impact than what we could create in the corporate world. That was one of the reasons why we quit. We have spent some 28. This is not just about me. A couple of co-founders who joined me. We have done enough in the corporate world. There are things work in the corporate world, not that things don't work, but it has its own pros and cons. And so is the case with a startup as well. So, but then we said, let's try something different and let's see if we can contribute back to the society in that process. Here, certainly we hire as part of the leadership team in large companies, we hire, but we hire on somebody else's behalf, right?
Yeah.
Can we create some employment on our own?
Okay.
Can we contribute back to the software industry by bringing about some change? So that is how we started. And then there were options, right? I mean, do you want to build something around services? Do you want to build something around product? Then we said no to services, because it's too late for us to do something in the services space. We will not be able to create much impact, and no one will see any differentiation. So to differentiate ourselves, we said product. And the minute we said we would do something, we would build a product, then that called for patience, because if it is services, probably you could start earning revenue in 3 months, in 6 months. But in the product world, it is not at all possible. You have to allow enough time for MVP to be built, minimum viable product to be built. You have to allow enough time for early adopters to try. In the meanwhile, you have to go on investing. So investment comes first here. I mean, you can't make just-in-time investment. You will have to make significant investment, and it is relatively capital intense, though there is no hardware involved, but you have to wait for returns. You may break even after 4 years, you may break even after 5 years. You have to have patience. You will build something very primitive because you have to see your idea working. You have to get some validation from people. But then you should know that it is your very early initial version that has to go through several changes before it really gets some kind of acceptance. I mean, unless you have that patience, while I think one has to be aggressive in the sense one has to have courage. This is more like jumping from a cliff, in my view. So to that extent, there is a lot of risk. If one is looking for safer option, then possibly this is not an option at all. You could try to make it a little safer here and there, but so one has to be aggressive, courageous. One has to have passion. One must pursue it relentlessly, and that restlessness, I think, is there, will always be there. But that is within. And when I deal with my teams,
Mm-hmm.
I have to deal with them as people.
That is
right?
my follow-on question.
I can't really deal with them, push them. I have to have them continue with us,
Yeah.
not only for 3 months, 6 months. They have to continue with us. If the journey has to be enriching and satisfying and gratifying, if we don't have people with us, those who started with us, and then we will not be able to even celebrate. I mean, because no one would even know
True. Yeah.
what that accomplishment means. So I think it is about balancing. And
yeah, I remember, I think, a quote attributed to Richard Branson, where he says, starting up is like jumping off the cliff, like you mentioned. And he adds that you jump off the cliff and then you start building the plane.
Yes.
So while doing this, what are some of the practices that helped you in you staying enthusiastic and also keeping the team also motivated and staying together?
One thing is, I think we always looked for some milestones, some goals to celebrate. We did that. We celebrated when we demoed it to the first customer. We celebrated when the UI stood up.
Okay.
We celebrated when we created the ID card. I mean, first time when we issued ID cards. I mean, badges, the lanyard. And we celebrated when the logo was designed and everyone agreed and launched. We celebrated when our first website was launched. So I think every milestone we celebrated, every small little milestone we celebrated, and that was helping us all realize, we are traveling. I mean, we have covered some distance. Of course, we have a long way to go, but that's one. And second, we didn't look for any grandeur plans, right? I mean, we are bootstrapped today, and I won't say it is by design, but we believe that by bootstrapping, I'm forced to be profitable. It forces certain behavior that is healthy in the first place. So we didn't, I mean, there is skin in the game. It's our money. So we work for it. We work for that money to grow. So remaining bootstrapped, not having realistic plans and being able to achieve it also has helped. And the founding team, we know that we have put money and we have not invested that money in a mutual fund. So I can't just watch it grow.
True.
I have to spend time and energy to grow it. So I think there is a common understanding that we have to work for it and grow it to reap the benefits. And don't be too greedy. Don't look for short-term gains. Feed the team first. Leadership eats last. And some of these very, very basic and probably old school of thought also has helped travel whatever distance, 5 years plus that we have traveled. We have been able to stay together. I mean, some of our employees, the core team that joined us, this is beyond the founding team. People the company has finished 5 years. There are people who have finished 5 years.
Wow.
And
congratulations.
Thank you. And what makes us proud is that some of those people joined us from campus without any significant prior experience. And today they are all impacting significant portion of the company. Somebody is driving SaaSification in its entirety. it's not just about developing software, but
Uh-huh.
UI, UX, making sure that there is zero downtime, and upgrades are seamless, and there is cadence. Not small. I think software engineering is not very easy.
Yeah.
So there are the people with 5 years of experience managing significant portion of the company, and we also have instituted ESOP
Okay.
to give some idea, so that people have they think it is their company, it's not someone else's.
Mhm.
And we are also talking about how we can contribute in our own small little way to remove biases in the society. Automation otherwise is a highly skilled job.
Mhm.
Now what we are trying to do is democratize automation. Anyone can automate testing. People with no experience can automate testing. People with 30 years experience can also automate testing. Both can bring the same degree of enthusiasm, and the experience bit is taken care by the platform. So, this is actually helping people in the ecosystem participate in innovating and making automation a real thing, So you can realize the true benefits of automation. Scripts written only when adopted, only when used, only when they run routinely is when actually the benefits are realized. So we are able to invite participation from across roles in the ecosystem. I know we can't impact the society at large, but in our own small little way, at least wherever we go, if we are able to do this, if we are able to create more inclusive environment, I believe it helps.
Yeah, that's very nice. I particularly like when you say that anybody can automate and anybody can test.
Yeah.
Yeah, truly. But then the landscape that you're working in, this is probably as an outsider layman's kind of perspective, where today these solutions that are deployed are getting more and more complex.
Yes.
It's not that it is a simple one program that is written, etc. So working more in the ecosystem testing space, and also with a sudden leap in technologies, particularly the AI technologies. You also say that you're embedded AI. And I liked it when you mentioned that it is actually the expertise and experience that you actually put in your solution, and others can generate the actual test scripts and all that. Where do you see this going from two perspectives? Now, one, today a lot of stories, or at least anecdotal things that people talk about, saying, I asked ChatGPT for an algorithm, it gave me one, and that it ran. And I said, write code, it gave me code. Then I said, give me test for that, it gave me test for that.
Yeah.
So in that kind of a context, since every company or every product identifies some USP, and they would like to build on some of their own experience, the role of probably domain awareness and how they are specifically solving the problem, and then training the platform to address that. So what are your thoughts on that? And then are you seeing that as a challenge or as an opportunity?
I think we see that as an opportunity. So let me give a perspective. Testing is a growing market. It has been there, and it continues to grow year on year. Even today, about 60% of testing is done manually.
Okay.
And that is the opportunity. And testing technology companies, companies like AlgoShack, there are not many. There are very few, world over. And these companies all have, they all started probably about 10, 15 years ago, max.
Okay.
Many of them more recent than that. Each one has taken on their path. Those that started 15 years ago, they started with record and play technology. There was no AI at that point in time. And they may have brought in AI, etc. of late. And the solutions in such scenarios could be disjoint and not so seamless. And then many of these companies have tried to introduce their proprietary framework, their proprietary scripting language. And scripts will not be delivered as end deliverable. Rather, you have to use the product to continue to run the scripts. And many a times they also specify where to execute those scripts.
Hmm.
They would have their own cloud execution environment. And we believe we are highly differentiated in this aspect. What we have done is we are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are not bringing in any proprietary language or any proprietary scripting language.
Okay.
We use the same, Java, JavaScript, TypeScript, C#, Python, and any of the testing tools that are readily available in the market, the likes of, Selenium, Playwright, Cypress, Protractor, Sikuli, Coded UI, Fly UI, Winamp Driver. And these are all open source, but not only we support open source, we also support the likes of Test Complete, LeanFT,
Okay.
Squish, that are commercial. So what we do is we only accelerate automation. If
Okay.
you used earlier Java Selenium for your automation, if you employed people to automate testing in Java Selenium, now you would use AlgoQA, and AlgoQA would produce script
Okay.
in Java Selenium only. So you don't have to change anything. Your the solution, the product AlgoQA, it fits seamlessly in a federated environment that you have.
Okay.
No rip and replacement whatsoever is required.
Okay.
So in this process, we are not introducing any new technology. So those industries that are highly regulated, they would have made their technology choices already. We come in, not change their technology landscape, but only accelerate automation. So that is how we position ourselves, and that is our differentiator, key differentiator. There is no monopolizing whatsoever. Truly democratize automation, and you could execute these scripts anywhere. You won't require AlgoQA, which is our product.
Okay.
Once you have the script, if you continue to use AlgoQA, there are advantages in maintenance. But if you think you want to maintain it on your own, then that is very much possible. So in this sense as well, we are democratizing it. We are keeping it very open and not closed. So that is when we believe there will be greater participation. Now, coming to AI, we are using AI and machine learning where it matters. At the end of the day, testing is about verification and validation. Testing is not really about following 10 steps for completing a process, for completing a workflow. There is significant validation required at every step of the way. Therefore, even when we generate test cases, they have to be validated.
Okay.
So this is our fundamental belief. So you cannot turn a blind eye. You cannot leave it entirely to machine learning to automate testing, because then you don't know what you're testing and whether it meets the testing requirements, be it verification, be it validation. So we say that machine learning wherever it matters. For example, to remove duplication, in test suite, to order test cases for smarter execution.
Okay.
And to forecast against each test case as to what could potentially fail when I execute next. So that you can pick the test cases for a regression suite more scientifically than going by gut.
So it's more like the risk-based testing approaches.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Risk-based testing is where we use machine learning use cases. In a controlled manner for automated test generation, we use machine learning. I'll give some examples. For example, if you go to digital commerce, all the consumer-facing portals or apps, that help you sell or buy, there is some commonality, right? So you can learn and you can bootstrap your test design efforts. Likewise, in the EMR, EHR world, electronic health record world, there is a standard called OpenEHR. Now, if EHRs are built using OpenEHR, then you could expect some standardization. There is something you could learn. So you have to apply it in a controlled manner. And at the end of the day, each application is unique. Even though, even when you talk about Mintras and Flipkarts and Amazons of the world, I believe the quality of the application depends on the people who developed it, their practice, their habits, the processes that they followed. So machine learning has to be specific to that application. It cannot be completely, generalized. The kind of issues that you would have in one application, you will not meet with same issues in another application, because the teams that develop those applications are different. Their culture would vary. The environment in which they develop could vary. So, and I don't know so much about ChatGPT, but let me add one bit. So what is happening with ChatGPT? If the information is available somewhere, then it can help organize. Probably it helps students. Earlier if I ran 4 queries, now 1 query is good enough.
Good enough.
I can get some poems written, I can get essays written, I can get some tips for writing Java Selenium scripts. But somebody has to probably leverage it and do a lot more on top of it to productize it for a particular use case. I mean, that's without knowing a lot about it. Let me hasten to add that. And we are doing some work checking how these could pan out, but I still would go back. Each domain is different. Though AlgoQA is a generic test automation platform, when I am talking to third-party logistics customers, then the language is different. When I talk to digital commerce, the language is different. We tell them how it could help improve conversion. I mean, their biggest challenge is conversion, right? I mean, conversion, if it is 2%, then that's great. And to get it to 2%, they have to spend a lot in terms of marketing. Now, instead, if you have a solid portal, you can, help reduce bounce off ratio. So, I mean, that's the language we should be talking when we are in front of, CDOs of digital commerce industry. I mean, otherwise, doesn't make sense to sell automation for automation. And the same thing goes if I'm in front of a medical devices customer. The challenges are different, pain points are different.
Wonderful.
And that is very important in my view than a very generic solution. I think that needs to be trained to solve a specific problem, need to be worked upon.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, goes back to the point on understanding domain that we spoke of earlier.
Yes.
So one thing, I didn't realize that in a conversation we are almost running out of time. But I still have one question that I would like to ask you. Now, first, it's very reassuring to know that what they call as the human in the middle is still valid. It can't be everything AI and everything automated. And with that in mind, do you have any quick tips for people who are considering a career in testing, whether it is someone new entering the industry or sometimes people who've done some work, those who go through probably the midlife crisis, saying that now should I learn something new and then should I contribute in that area? What would be your tips for getting into testing?
I think testing today is no longer that isolated activity that begins after development, like the way it used to be at one point in time with waterfall models. I think testing is more holistic. It is not just about process. It is about domain. It's about functionality. It is also about technology. I think test engineers got to be techno-functional in the first place. They need to know tools. They need to know techniques. They need to understand, about automation. They should be able to automate. They should be able to automate not only functional testing, but non-functional testing. They should be able to unit test code. They should be able to perform scalability testing. They should be able to test if ETL migration, whether it has been successful or not. So one needs to know, for example, writing queries using SQL or whatever. That is on one side. So what we call today software development engineers in tests. So I said they got to be techno-functional. So QAs should develop as BAs as well, be able to understand, product owners' perspectives, must be able to relate very well to the business requirements. So QA, BA, SDET, and continue to focus on, learning techniques. I mean, for example, people end up writing end-to-end test cases because they think it is important. Now, what happens is when you write end-to-end test cases, there will be too many test cases and there will be too many steps. Instead, if you write test cases at each component level and for end-to-end testing, if you string the test cases at the component level without having to rewrite them, there will be significant reuse, and that reuse helps with automation. So there is no point in automating something that is not optimal. It is best to, optimize test cases, whom test cases, redesign test cases, write test cases, keeping users in mind, so that testing efforts, automation efforts, test execution efforts, they all go down. I think constant learning, one cannot say that I'm a test engineer, I'm at the low end of this food chain. This is the feeling that test engineers carry. Probably that is one of the reasons why there hasn't been much innovation in the past in the testing space, because we didn't consider it important. Be it the leadership, be it the development teams, be it the people that pursue testing. I think there has to be much higher self-esteem. We have to place it correctly and give it right importance and learn. I think then testing is for those who are very curious, and one can explore the entire solution rather than focusing on developing one bit of it. I think there is huge opportunity for testing fraternity to learn more and more about the products and solutions and customers. So one has to see it that way, in my view. And it's really for curious people.
Yeah, that is really a nice way to kind of conclude this conversation. We started with the curiosity. You said you were curious. I said I was curious. And then that seems to have emerged as a key requirement to be a successful tester and make positive contribution.
I think so, Shiv. I think it is curiosity. That's a key ingredient for a tester or a test engineer.
Yeah. On that note, thanks a lot, Vadeesh, for taking the time and sharing your experience, and also some of these things which appear simple, but then how important they are in order to ensure that there is good software that goes out finally.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. That's what matters. Software is the differentiator today everywhere. Thank you so much, Shiv, for giving this opportunity. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks a lot.
We thank Siddharth for the music and Anita for promoting the Software People Stories.
If you like this episode,
please subscribe on your favorite podcast client
and spread the word in your network.
If you'd like to share your story,
contact us at podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.